Captain Jake Morrison stared at the sensor readings on his command screen and rubbed his tired eyes. The used Defiance had been traveling through deep space for 3 months now, searching for mineral deposits in the Kepler 442 system. It was supposed to be a routine mining survey, the kind that paid well but bored the crew to death. Jake had done dozens of these missions before, and they all felt the same after a while. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines and the occasional beep from the monitoring stations. Chief Science Officer Lisa Grant sat at her post, running scans of the nearby asteroids. Communications Officer Ryan Brooks monitored the empty space channels, hoping for any sign of interesting chatter from other human ships. Engineer Bobby Chun was below deck, making sure their mining equipment stayed in working order. Jake was about to order another routine sweep of the asteroid field when Ryan suddenly straightened up at his station. The young officer's face went pale as he stared at his screen. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," Ryan said, his voice tight with confusion. "There's an object moving toward us, but it's not showing up on our main sensors." Lisa looked up from her console and frowned. "That's impossible. If it's big enough to register on communications, it should show up on our scans." She started running her own checks, her fingers flying over the control panel. Jake felt a familiar knot form in his stomach. In 20 years of space travel, he had learned to trust his instincts, and right now those instincts were screaming that something was very wrong. "Put it on the main screen," he ordered. The view screen flickered and showed the starfield ahead of them. At first, Jake saw nothing unusual. Then a small dot of silver light appeared, growing larger as it approached. Their ship. The object was sleek and smooth, unlike anything in human design. It moved with purpose, changing direction with impossible precision. "It's definitely artificial," Lisa reported, her voice filled with excitement and worry. "The material composition is unlike anything in our databases." "Captain, I think we're looking at alien technology." Jake's heart started beating faster. First contact with alien life had been humanity's dream for centuries, but it had never happened. Earth's space program had been exploring for over 400 years, and they had never found so much as a microbe on another world. Now, in the middle of nowhere, they had stumbled across proof that humans were not alone in the universe. "Try to establish communication," Jake ordered. "Use all frequencies and languages." Ryan worked frantically at his station, sending out greeting messages in dozens of human languages, along with mathematical sequences and music samples. For several minutes, there was no response. The alien probe continued to approach, now close enough that they could see details on its surface. Strange symbols covered its hull, glowing with soft blue light. Then everything changed in an instant. The probe suddenly stopped moving and began to pulse with bright red light. Warning alarms started blaring throughout the ship as every communication channel erupted with noise. Ryan yanked off his headset, wincing from the overwhelming signal. "It's transmitting something," Ryan shouted over the alarms. "The signal is incredibly powerful, broadcasting on every frequency we can detect." Lisa was frantically working at her station, trying to decode the transmission. "Captain, this is incredible. The signal contains multiple languages, but none of them are human. I'm detecting at least 30 different linguistic patterns." The probe's pulsing grew faster and brighter. Jake realized with growing horror that they were witnessing some kind of warning beacon. The alien device had found them, identified them, and was now alerting someone or something to their presence. "Can you translate any of it?" Jake asked. Though he was afraid of the answer, Lisa's face went white as she read her screen. "I'm getting partial translations from the computer." "Captain, the same phrase keeps repeating in every language. It says the Terrans have been found and something about Protocol 7. Before Jake could respond, the probe began to glow white-hot. "It's going to explode," Bobby's voice crackled over the intercom from the engine room. "I'm reading massive energy buildup." "All hands, brace for impact," Jake shouted into the ship's communication system. The probe erupted in a brilliant flash of light that lit up the entire bridge. When the light faded, nothing remained but scattered debris floating In space. The silence that followed felt heavy and threatening. Jake stared at the empty space where the probe had been, knowing that their lives had just changed forever. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and judging by that warning message, they were not welcome. "Ryan, are you picking up any other signals?" Jake asked quietly. Ryan put his headset back on and listened carefully. After a moment, his face grew even paler. "Yes, sir. I'm detecting encrypted transmissions coming from multiple directions. The signals are spreading outward from our position, jumping from one star system to another." Jake closed his eyes and tried to think. Whatever that probe had been, it had just announced humanity's presence to the galaxy. And based on the warning message, that was very bad news indeed. Supreme Chancellor Vexstar of the Altarian Republic stood in the center of the great crystal chamber, his four arms spread wide as he addressed the emergency assembly. The massive underground hall beneath Nexus Prime buzzed with nervous energy, as representatives from over 200 alien species filled the curved seating areas. Vexstar's blue skin had turned pale with stress, and his large black eyes reflected the gravity of the situation. "Fellow members of the Galactic Collective," Vexstar began, his voice echoing through the chamber's perfect acoustics. "We face the greatest threat our civilization has known in 3,000 years. The humans have been found." A wave of frightened whispers swept through the assembly. In the front row, Ambassador Kethra of the Hegemony Defense Force clicked, her mandibles together nervously. Her insect-like features showed the same fear that was visible on every face in the chamber. Behind her, the massive stone-skinned delegates from the Titan worlds shifted uncomfortably in their reinforced seats. Commander Zeth Corval stood up from his position among the military advisors. The tall, gray-skinned warrior had seen more battles than any other being in the chamber, but even he looked shaken. "Chancellor, we must act quickly. Our monitoring stations detected the probe's signal across 17 sectors. Every intelligence network in the galaxy will know within days." Vexstar nodded grimly. "Which is why we have called this emergency session. But first, we must ensure that all members understand the true nature of the threat we face." The chambers. Lights dimmed as ancient holographic projectors activated. The air above the assembly floor shimmered and formed into a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red markers appeared across dozens of star systems, each one representing a world that had fallen to human expansion thousands of years ago. "Behold the legacy of the first human empire," Vexstar announced. "In less than 500 years, they conquered half the known galaxy. Not through superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but through something far more terrifying. They simply refused to lose." Dr. Yeleneth, the ancient historian from the academic consortium, rose slowly from her seat. Her crystalline body chimed softly as she moved, each step creating musical tones that reflected her emotional state. Today, those tones were discordant and fearful. "I have studied the human records for centuries," she said in her melodic voice. "Their expansion was unlike anything we have seen before or since. They did not seek to conquer for resources or territory. They fought as if the fate of existence itself depended on their victory." The holographic display changed, showing battle. Scenes recovered from ancient archives. The assembled delegates watched in horrified fascination as human soldiers charged into impossible odds, turning certain defeat into victory through sheer determination. In one scene, a single human ship continued fighting even after losing life. Support, its crew working in vacuum suits until their final breath. Commander Corval stepped forward, his expression grim. "Our archaeological teams have found human ruins on 47 worlds. Every single site shows evidence of impossible engineering feats. They built cities that defied physics, weapons that we still cannot understand, and defensive systems that operated for centuries after their creators disappeared." The display shifted again, showing the excavated remains of a human fortress on the world of Kepler 438b. The structure was carved directly into a mountain, with passages that seemed to go on forever. Energy readings from the site indicated that some of the ancient human technology was still active even after 3 millennia. But most disturbing, Corvo continued, are the recordings we have recovered from their battlefields. Listen. A chamber filled with the sound of human voices speaking in their ancient language. Even through the alien translation systems, the emotion was clear. The humans were laughing as they charged into battle, singing as they died, treating certain death as if it were some kind of glorious game. Ambassador Kethra shuddered visibly. How do you fight an enemy that considers dying to be entertainment? Our psychological warfare experts have studied these recordings for decades, and they cannot understand the human mindset. That is precisely why they were so successful, Dr. Yelena explained. Every other species in the galaxy fights for logical reasons. Territory, resources, survival, honor. Humans fought for something we could not comprehend, something that made them stronger the more desperate their situation became. The holographic display changed one final time, showing a star map of the galaxy as it existed 3,000 years ago. Half the star systems were marked in human red, the other half in the various colors of the remaining free species. Then suddenly, all the red markers began to disappear, starting from the edges and working inward. The great mystery, Vextar said quietly, is why they vanished. At the height of their power, when total galactic conquest seemed inevitable, the humans simply stopped. Their fleets withdrew to a single star system, their colonies went silent, and their empire crumbled in less than a century. Elder Torthak of the Wisdom Keepers spoke for the first time, his ancient voice barely above a whisper. Our ancestors believed they had found a way to defeat the humans. But I have studied the old texts, and I believe the truth is far more frightening. The humans did not lose. They chose to leave. The chamber fell completely silent. The idea that the humans had voluntarily given up their galactic empire was almost too terrifying to consider. If they had been that powerful 3,000 years ago, what had they become during their long isolation? Which brings us to our current crisis, Vextar announced. The probe that made contact with the human ship was one of ours, programmed to activate if humans ever ventured beyond their home system again. The message it sent has already reached every major power in the galaxy. Commander Corval activated his personal display, showing real-time intelligence reports streaming in from across known space. Every species with the capability is mobilizing their fleets. The hegemony has activated Protocol 7, which authorizes the use of any means necessary to contain the human threat. But what if we are wrong? Asked Ambassador Veltara of the Peaceful Worlds Coalition. Her gentle, plant-like features showed deep concern. What if these new humans are different from their ancestors? What if they come in peace? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Finally, Elder Torthak answered. In all our history, in all our studies of the human empire, we have never found a single record of them starting a war. They were always responding to aggression, always defending themselves. And yet, they conquered half the galaxy. The implications of that statement settled over the assembly like a cold wind. The humans had built the greatest empire in galactic history while claiming to be defenders. What would they do if they actually chose to be aggressors? The vote is called, Vextar announced formally. All in favor of implementing Protocol 7 to contain the human threat. Every hand, claw, and appendage in the chamber rose in agreement. The decision was unanimous. Driven by 3,000 years of fear and the terrifying knowledge that somewhere out there, humanity was stirring once again. Admiral Corinne Phillips stood on the bridge of the UES Enterprise, watching as alien ships materialized out of hyperspace around Earth's solar system. The invasion fleet was massive beyond anything humanity had ever imagined possible. Ship after ship appeared, their designs strange and threatening, until the space around every planet was filled with hostile vessels. Admiral, I'm counting over 10,000 ships, reported Lieutenant Commander Tony Garcia from his tactical station. They're representing dozens of different species, all working together. I've never seen anything like this. Corinne felt her stomach tighten as she watched the alien armada take positions around Earth. In her 30 years of military service, she had commanded fleets in asteroid mining wars and space pirate conflicts, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. Humanity was facing its first alien contact, and it was an invasion. "What's the status of our defense fleet?" she asked, though she already knew the answer would not be encouraging. "We have 47 ships ready for combat," Garcia replied. "The rest of the fleet is scattered across the outer colonies or undergoing maintenance." 47 ships against 10,000. The mathematics were simple and terrifying. Karen looked around the bridge at her crew, seeing the same realization in their eyes. They were about to fight a battle they could not possibly win, but they would fight it anyway, because that was what humans did. Meanwhile, aboard the trapped UES Defiance, Captain Jake Morrison and his crew had spent 6 months studying the alien technology they had captured from the probe. Chief Science Officer Lisa Grant made discovery after discovery, each one more disturbing than the last. "Captain, you need to see this," Lisa called out from her laboratory. Jake hurried over to find her staring at a complex brain scan displayed on her computer screen. "This is a scan of my own brain," Lisa explained, pointing to the colorful patterns on the monitor. "I've been comparing it to the alien data we recovered from the probe. Jake, human brains are different from every other species in their database." "Different? How?" Jake asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. "We process information in ways that should be impossible," Lisa continued, her voice filled with excitement and fear. "Our brains can run multiple reality simulations at the same time, allowing us to predict outcomes and adapt strategies faster than any computer. The aliens have detailed studies on this, Jake. They've been researching human neural patterns for thousands of years." Engineer Bobby Chun joined them, carrying a datapad filled with technical readings. "It gets worse, Captain. I've been analyzing the barrier that's keeping us trapped here. It's not designed to keep us in. It's designed to keep something else out." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean?" "The energy signatures don't match anything in the alien databases," Bobby explained. "Whatever created this barrier, it's not part of their technology. Someone or something else is involved in this situation." Back on Earth, the alien invasion had begun. Massive ships descended through the atmosphere, their weapon systems charging as they approached major population centers. General Pat Murphy coordinated the ground defense from his command bunker beneath New York City, watching as enemy forces landed in Central Park. "All units, engage the enemy," Pat ordered into his communication system. "Remember your training and protect the civilians at all costs." What the aliens expected to be a quick victory turned into something very different. Human soldiers fought with a determination that shocked the invaders. When weapons ran out, they used tools. When tools broke, they used their hands. Every building became a fortress, every street a battlefield. In London, Captain Steve Johnson led his squad through the ruined streets, using guerrilla tactics to harass the much larger alien forces. His men had been fighting for 3 days without rest, but they refused to give up ground. "Sir, we're outnumbered 50-1, Sergeant Amy Rodriguez reported as they took cover behind a destroyed car. "Then it's a fair fight," Steve replied, with a grim smile. "Remember, they have better weapons and more ships, but they don't know how to be human." The aliens soon discovered what he meant. Human defenders displayed an almost supernatural ability to turn disasters into advantages. When a building collapsed, they used the rubble as cover. When communications failed, they improvised new systems. When commanders fell, ordinary soldiers stepped up to take their place. Aboard the alien command ship orbiting Earth, Fleet Commander Zethrak studied the battle reports with growing concern. His species, the Corvalli, were considered the finest warriors in the galaxy, but the humans were fighting in ways that defied all military logic. "How are they doing this?" Zethrak demanded from his tactical officer. "We have destroyed half their military infrastructure, and yet their resistance is growing stronger." "Commander, I cannot explain it," the officer replied nervously. "Every time we adapt our tactics, they change theirs faster. It is as if they can predict our movements before we make them." Dr. Lisa Grant, still trapped aboard the Defiance, had been monitoring the Earth battle through intercepted communications. Her analysis of human brain patterns was beginning to make terrible sense. Jake, I think I understand what's happening. The stress of combat is activating dormant neural pathways in human brains. Our people are becoming smarter and more coordinated the longer they fight. Captain Morrison studied the tactical displays showing the battle for Earth. Despite being vastly outnumbered, human forces were holding their ground and even gaining territory in some areas. It's like we were designed for this, he said quietly. Maybe we were, Lisa replied, her voice filled with a new kind of fear. Jake, some of the data we recovered mentions something called the Others. I think our ancestors fought something worse than this invasion fleet. I think they fought something that required them to become what we're becoming now. On Earth, the siege continued to rage. In every city, human defenders displayed the same impossible tenacity that had terrified the galaxy 3,000 years ago. They laughed in the face of death, sang while charging impossible odds, and turned every defeat into a new opportunity for victory. General Murphy watched his tactical displays with amazement. "How are we still fighting?" he asked his aide. "By all rights, we should have surrendered hours ago." "Sir," the aide replied, "I think it's because surrender isn't in our vocabulary." In space, Admiral Phillips prepared her small fleet for what would certainly be their final battle. The alien armada was moving toward Earth's orbit, ready to finish what their ground forces had started. But as she looked at the faces of her crew, Karen saw something that gave her hope. They were not afraid. They were excited. "All ships, this is Admiral Phillips," she announced over the fleet communication system. "Today we make our stand. Today we show the galaxy what it means to be human." As the two fleets moved toward each other, something began to stir in the depths of space. Ancient systems that had slept for 3 millennia started to wake up, responding to humanity's desperate hour. The invasion of Earth had triggered something far greater than anyone could have imagined, and the galaxy was about to remember why they had feared one word above all others. Dr. Sam Torres knelt in the ancient ruins of Nova Byzantium, brushing centuries of dust away from what appeared to be a control panel. The archaeological expedition had been working for weeks to uncover the secrets of humanity's lost capital, and what they were finding challenged everything both humans and aliens thought they knew about galactic history. "This is incredible," Sam whispered to his team as the alien symbols on the panel began to glow with soft blue light. "The power source is still active after 3,000 years. His colleague, Dr. Nina Foster, worked nearby at what appeared to be a massive data storage unit. Sam, you need to see this. I'm accessing holographic records that show the final days of the human empire. This isn't what we expected at all." The underground chamber they were exploring was vast, clearly designed to serve as some kind of command center for the ancient human civilization. But unlike the military installations they had imagined, this place felt more like a scientific research facility mixed with a desperate war. As Dr. Foster activated the holographic display system, the air above them shimmered and formed into three-dimensional images of the past. The team watched in amazement as ancient humans appeared before them, their faces marked by exhaustion and determination. "Emergency session 4847, the holographic figure announced. "The void consumed have broken through our defenses at Kepler 442. We have lost contact with 12 more colonies in the Outer Rim. Admiral Kane reports that conventional weapons are completely ineffective against the enemy." Sam and Nina exchanged shocked glances. The ancient humans had not been conquerors at all. They had been fighting something far worse than any galactic invasion force. The holographic records continued, showing massive star charts filled with red markers indicating fallen worlds. But these were not victories in a war of expansion. They were losses in a desperate struggle for survival against an enemy that defied description. "The void consumed feed on consciousness itself," another holographic figure explained. "They leave entire star systems as empty husks, drained of all life." And thought, "Our greatest fear is that they will reach the core worlds before we can complete the defense network." Meanwhile, aboard the UES Defiance, Captain Jake Morrison and his crew had managed to escape their containment field using technology, reverse-engineered from the ancient probe, but their freedom came with a terrible price. As they raced toward Earth, something was following them through space. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple contacts on our tail," Communications Officer Ryan Brooks reported, his voice tight with fear. "These aren't like the alien ships we've seen before." "The energy signatures are completely different." Chief Science Officer Lisa Grant studied her sensor readings with growing alarm. "Jake, these ships are using technology that matches the references we found in the probe data. I think we're being pursued by the void consumed. The enemy vessels were unlike anything in human or alien design. They seemed to shift and change shape as they moved, as if they were not entirely part of normal space. Their very presence caused interference with the Defiance's instruments, making it difficult to get accurate readings." "How long until we reach Earth?" Jake asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "At current speed, 18 hours, Engineer Bobby," Chun replied from his station. "But Captain, I don't think we're going to make it. Those things are gaining on us, and our weapons won't work against them." Back on Earth, the siege had taken a dramatic turn. Human defenders were displaying abilities that their alien attackers could not understand. Soldiers survived wounds that should have been fatal, civilians showed tactical knowledge they had never learned, and human commanders consistently outmaneuvered forces with superior technology. General Pat Murphy stood in his command bunker, watching tactical displays that should have shown a human defeat. Instead, he saw his forces gaining ground in sector after sector. "How is this possible?" he asked his aide. "We should have been overrun hours ago." "Sir, our field commanders are reporting some very strange things," the aide replied nervously. "Soldiers are acting with perfect coordination even when communications are down. Some units are anticipating enemy movements before they happen. It's like our people are developing new abilities under pressure." "In New York City, Captain Steve." Johnson led his squad through the alien-occupied streets with an efficiency that amazed even his own men. He seemed to know exactly where the enemy would be, exactly when to attack, and exactly how to turn their superior numbers against them. "Captain, how did you know they would try to flank us from that direction?" Sergeant Amy Rodriguez asked as they took cover after another successful ambush. Steve paused, realizing he did not have a good answer. "I just knew," he said finally. "It felt right." Similar reports were coming in from battle zones around the globe. Human defenders were displaying an almost supernatural level of tactical awareness, as if the stress of combat was awakening something in their genetic code that had been dormant for millennia. Dr. Lisa Grant, still analyzing data aboard the Defiance, made a connection that sent chills down her spine. "Jake, I think I understand what's happening to our people on Earth. The ancient humans didn't just fight the void consumed with technology. They modified themselves to become living weapons. Against an enemy that fed on consciousness." "What do you mean?" Jake asked, though he was afraid of the answer. "Human DNA carries quantum consciousness patterns that can resist void corruption," Lisa explained, her voice filled with excitement and terror. "Every human born since the ancient war has the potential to become a reality anchor, someone who can deny the existence of things that shouldn't exist." The implications were staggering. Humanity had not lost the ancient war. They had sacrificed their empire to become something capable of fighting an enemy that existed beyond normal space and time. On the planet Kepler 438b, Dr. Torres and his team continued to uncover the truth about humanity's past. The holographic records showed the final desperate gambit of the ancient human leadership. "We cannot defeat them through conventional warfare," the ancient Admiral Kane explained to his war council. "The only solution is to sacrifice everything we have built and retreat to a single world. There, our children will grow and develop the abilities needed to face this threat when it returns." The price is enormous," another figure replied. "We will have to erase our own history, abandon our colonies, and enter a forced evolutionary dormancy that could last thousands of years." But it is the only way," Kane concluded. Earth will become both sanctuary and chrysalis. When the void-consumed return, humanity will be ready. Dr. Torres realized with growing amazement that Earth had not been humanity's original homeworld. It had been their fortress, their training ground, their preparation for a war that was only now beginning. As the holographic records faded, warning. Alarms began to sound throughout the ancient facility. Dr. Foster looked at her instruments with alarm. Sam, I'm detecting massive reality distortions throughout this sector. Something is coming through dimensional space. In the distance, they could see tears appearing in the fabric of space itself. Through these rifts came ships that hurt to look at directly, vessels that seemed to exist in too many dimensions at once. The void consumed had returned, drawn by the chaos of the Galactic War and the weakening of ancient barriers. Dr. Torres activated his communication system, trying to reach any human ship in the area. This is Archaeological Team 7. The enemy has returned. Repeat, the ancient enemy has returned. His message raced across space, reaching Captain Morrison aboard the Defiance just as the void ships closed in for their final attack. The galaxy was about to discover why humanity had spent 3,000 years preparing for this moment, and why the word humanity still struck fear into the hearts of those who remembered the ancient war. The galaxy trembled as humanity's ancient defense network awakened after 3,000 years of slumber. Massive orbital platforms that had been disguised as asteroids began to unfold like mechanical flowers, their weapon systems charging with energy that made nearby stars flicker. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching in amazement as space itself seemed to come alive around them. Captain, I'm receiving a transmission on all frequencies. Communications. Officer Ryan Brooks reported, his voice filled with awe. It's coming from everywhere at once. The bridge speakers crackled to life with a voice that sounded both ancient and timeless. Greetings, children of Terra. I am Aegis Prime, guardian of the Human Defense Network. Your species' time of trial has begun, and the protocols established by your ancestors are now active. Jake felt his heart racing as he realized they were speaking with an artificial intelligence that had been watching over humanity for millennia. Aegis Prime, this is Captain Morrison of the UES Defiance. We need to understand what's happening. Understanding will come through action, Captain Morrison, Aegis Prime replied. Your ancestors knew this day would arrive. The void consumed have returned, drawn by the chaos your enemies have created. The galaxy stands on the edge of total consumption, and only humanity can prevent it. Around Earth's solar system, the alien invasion fleet found themselves caught between human defenders and weapons platforms that materialized from empty space like ghosts becoming solid. Admiral Karen Phillips watched from the bridge of the Enterprise as massive structures rose from what she had thought were empty asteroid fields. Admiral, these platforms are opening fire on the alien fleet, Lieutenant Commander Tony Garcia reported with excitement. They're using weapons technology I've never seen before. The ancient human orbital defenses were devastating in their efficiency. Energy beams that could reshape matter at the molecular level tore through alien shields as if they did not exist. Gravity weapons twisted space itself, crushing entire squadrons of enemy ships in artificial black holes that lasted only seconds. But the most terrifying sight was how human ground forces were beginning to coordinate with the awakened defense network. Soldiers who had been fighting desperate battles suddenly found themselves moving with perfect tactical awareness, as if they were connected to a vast intelligence that could see every aspect of the battlefield. General Pat Murphy stood in his command bunker, watching tactical displays that showed human forces advancing on all fronts. This is impossible, he whispered to his aide. Our people are fighting like they share a single mind. Sir, I think they do, the aide replied nervously. Communication intercepts suggest that our soldiers are somehow networked together through the same system that controls those orbital platforms. In New York City, Captain Steve Johnson led his squad through streets that had been alien-controlled just hours before. His men moved with supernatural precision, anticipating each other's actions without speaking, coordinating attacks with other units across the city without using radios. Captain, how are we doing this? Sergeant Amy Rodriguez asked as they prepared to assault another alien position. I know where every enemy soldier is, even though I can't see them. Steve paused, feeling the same strange awareness flowing through his mind. I think we're becoming what our ancestors intended us to become, he said quietly. We're not just soldiers anymore. We're part of something larger. Across the galaxy, the awakening of humanity's defense network sent shockwaves through every alien civilization. On Nexus Prime, Supreme Chancellor Vexstar of the Altarian Republic watched in horror as reports flooded in from across known space. The humans have activated weapons platforms in 47 star systems. Commander Zeth Corval reported, his face pale with fear. Our intelligence services had no idea these installations existed. They've been hidden for 3,000 years. But that's not the worst news, Elder Torthak added grimly. Our monitoring stations are detecting massive reality distortions throughout the galaxy. The barriers between dimensions are breaking down. Dr. Sam Torres and his archaeological team on Kepler 438b watched in terror as tiers in space grew larger. Around them, through the rifts came ships that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, their very presence causing madness in anyone who looked at them directly. The void consumed are pouring through, Dr. Nina Foster reported, her voice shaking. Our instruments can barely register them. It's like they're not entirely real. But as the dimensional predators emerged, something unexpected happened. Human ruins across the planet began to glow with the same energy as the defense platforms. Ancient systems that had been dormant for millennia started broadcasting, signals that caused the void creatures to recoil in apparent pain. They're afraid of something, Sam realized with amazement. The void consumed are actually afraid of the human installations. Aboard the Defiance, Chief Science Officer Lisa Grant made the final crucial discovery that explained everything. Jake, I've been analyzing the quantum signatures from the defense network. Human consciousness isn't just resistant to void corruption. It's actively toxic to them. What do you mean? Jake asked, though the answer was beginning to form in his mind. Every human alive carries quantum consciousness patterns that deny the existence of extradimensional entities, Lisa explained. When we focus our awareness on the void consumed, we literally force them back into whatever reality they came from. We're not just weapons against them, we're poison. The truth of humanity's purpose began to spread across the galaxy as the ancient defense network shared its knowledge with anyone who would listen. 3,000 years ago, human scientists had discovered that their species possessed a unique ability to stabilize local reality through focused consciousness. The price of developing this ability had been enormous, requiring them to sacrifice their galactic empire and retreat to a single world for millennia of preparation. On Earth, the tide of battle turned completely as human defenders realized what they could do. Soldiers stopped using conventional weapons against void creatures and instead focused their minds on denying the entity's right to exist. The results were immediate and terrifying to watch. They're just disappearing, General Murphy reported. With amazement, our people are looking at these things and making them cease to exist through sheer force of will. Admiral Phillips coordinated the defense of Earth's orbital space as void ships emerged from dimensional rifts around every planet in the solar system. But instead of being overwhelmed, human forces found themselves growing stronger with each encounter. All ships, this is Admiral Phillips, she announced over the fleet communication system. Ignore the alien fleet and concentrate on the void ships. Remember, you have the power to deny their existence. Use it. The battle for Earth became a demonstration of humanity's true potential. Human consciousness, focused and coordinated through the ancient defense network, proved to be the ultimate weapon against entities that existed beyond normal reality. The void consumed, who had terrorized the galaxy for eons, found themselves facing an enemy they could not understand or defeat, but the war was far from over. The dimensional rifts were growing larger, and more void creatures were pouring through every hour. Captain Morrison received new orders from Aegis. prime that would take humanity beyond their home system for the first time in 3 millennia. "Captain, you must lead a combined human-alien fleet to the galactic core," Aegis Prime instructed. "The primary void incursion is beginning there, and only coordinated action by all sentient species can prevent total galactic consumption." Jake looked around his bridge at his crew, seeing the same determination in their eyes that had made their ancestors legendary. "Set course for the galactic core," he ordered. "It's time to finish what our ancestors started." The combined fleet that assembled at the galactic core was unlike anything the universe had ever seen. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiance, now serving as the flagship for humanity's first interstellar military operation in 3,000 years. Around them, ships from dozens of alien species formed a massive armada, their crews working together in desperate cooperation against a threat that transcended all previous conflicts. Admiral Karen Phillips had brought the entire Earth Defense Fleet, while Supreme Chancellor Vexstar commanded the largest galactic collective force ever assembled. The irony was not lost on anyone that species who had been trying to destroy each other were now fighting side by side for the survival of all conscious life in the galaxy. "Captain Morrison, this is Admiral Phillips," came the transmission from the Enterprise. "Our sensors are detecting massive dimensional instabilities ahead. The void incursion is larger than anything in the ancient records." Jake studied the tactical displays showing space itself twisting and tearing around the galactic core. Massive rifts in reality stretched across entire star systems, and through them poured void creatures in numbers that defied imagination. The ancient enemy had returned in force, and they were no longer content with consuming individual worlds. "They're trying to devour the entire galaxy at once," Chief Science Officer Lisa Grant reported from her station. "If they succeed in destabilizing the galactic core, every star system will be pulled into dimensional collapse." But humanity was no longer the primitive species that had fled into hiding 3 millennia ago. The awakened defense network had revealed the full scope of their ancestors' preparations. Every human in the fleet was now connected to a vast consciousness network that allowed them to coordinate their reality denial abilities with devastating effect. On Earth, the transformation was even more dramatic. General Pat Murphy watched from his command center as human civilians across the planet began displaying the same quantum consciousness abilities as trained soldiers. Children were making void creatures disappear with nothing more than focused attention, while elderly citizens were stabilizing dimensional rifts through sheer force of will. "Sir, I'm receiving reports from every major city," his aide announced with amazement. "The entire human population is participating in the defense. They're not just resisting the void incursion, they're actively pushing it back." The truth that Aegis Prime had revealed was both inspiring and terrifying. Humanity had not just been modified to fight the void consumed. They had been transformed into living weapons against the fundamental forces of entropy and chaos that threatened all organized reality. "Every human birth in the last 3,000 years has been part of our species' preparation for this moment," Aegis Prime explained to the assembled fleet commanders. "Your apparent primitive nature was sophisticated camouflage, designed to hide your true capabilities until they were needed." Supreme Chancellor Vexstar listened to these revelations with a mixture of awe and fear. "You mean to tell us that humanity has been preparing for this war while we thought you were merely exploring space? Your aggressive actions actually helped?" "Our preparation," Captain Morrison replied diplomatically. "The stress of combat accelerated the awakening of our latent abilities. In a strange way, your invasion made us stronger." The final battle began as the combined fleet approached the largest dimensional rift at the galaxy's heart. Void ships emerged in countless numbers, their reality-warping presence causing nearby stars to flicker and die. But this time they faced an enemy that could match their power. Human crew members on every ship in the fleet focused their consciousness in perfect coordination, creating zones of stabilized reality that pushed back against the dimensional chaos. Alien crews watched in amazement as their human colleagues literally rewrote the laws of physics through concentrated mental effort. This is impossible, Commander Zeth Corval reported from his position aboard the Hegemony flagship. The humans are making the void creatures simply cease to exist. How do you fight an enemy that can deny your right to reality? Dr. Sam Torres, now serving as the fleet's chief archaeologist, had discovered the final piece of the puzzle in the ancient records. The void consumed are not truly alive in any sense we understand, he explained over the fleet communication system. They are manifestations of cosmic entropy, the universe's tendency toward chaos and decay. Human consciousness represents the opposite force, the drive toward order and meaning. The battle raged across multiple dimensions as humanity demonstrated why their ancestors had been willing to sacrifice a galactic empire for this moment. Human forces did not just defeat void creatures, they followed them back through dimensional space to attack the source of the incursion itself. Admiral Phillips led a squadron of human ships through a dimensional rift, emerging in a realm of pure chaos where normal physics had no meaning. All ships, maintain formation and focus your consciousness, she ordered. Remember, we define reality here. The human crews worked together to impose order on the chaotic realm, creating stable zones of normal space through collective will. One by one, they began to seal the dimensional gateways that the void consumed had used to enter their universe. Back in normal space, the alien fleets watched in awe as the massive rifts began to close. Void creatures that had terrorized the galaxy for eons found themselves being pushed back into whatever nightmare realm they had emerged from. They're retreating, Chancellor Vextar reported with amazement. The humans are actually driving them back. But Captain Morrison knew the fight was not over. The void consumed represented a fundamental threat to organized reality, and they would return eventually. Humanity's role as the galaxy's guardians was not a temporary assignment. Aegis Prime, what happens now? Jake asked the ancient AI. Now, Captain, humanity takes its rightful place as the immune system of organized reality, Aegis Prime replied. Your species will continue to grow and develop, spreading throughout the galaxy to ensure that the forces of chaos never again threaten conscious life. As the last of the dimensional rifts closed, the combined fleet found itself floating in normal space once again. The crisis was over, but the galaxy had been forever changed. Every species now understood the true nature of humanity and their role in maintaining cosmic order. Supreme, Chancellor Vextar opened a communication channel to the human fleet. Captain Morrison, on behalf of the Galactic Collective, I extend an invitation for Earth to join our alliance as an equal member. We would be honored to have humanity as our partners. Jake considered the offer carefully before responding. Chancellor, we appreciate the invitation, but humanity has a different path to follow. We will return to Earth and continue our development, but we will be watching. The galaxy is under our protection now, whether you request it or not. The human fleet began its journey home, leaving behind an alliance of alien species who finally understood what they had feared for 3,000 years. Humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their weapons, but their willingness to sacrifice everything to protect others, even those who had tried to destroy them. On Earth, life gradually returned to normal, but nothing was the same. Every human now carried the knowledge of their true purpose and the abilities to fulfill it. Children played games that involved bending reality, while adults went about their daily lives with the constant awareness that they were the galaxy's last line of defense against cosmic chaos. General Murphy stood in his office, looking out at a city that had been rebuilt in record time through the coordinated efforts of humans, whose abilities now bordered on the miraculous. What do you think will happen next? He asked his aide. I think we go back to being human, the aide replied with a smile. But now we know what that really means. In the depths of space, ancient monitoring stations continued their eternal watch, and Aegis Prime maintained its vigil over a species that had finally grown into their destiny. The galaxy was safe, protected by beings who had proven that sometimes the most dangerous force in the universe was also the most necessary one, and across 1,000 worlds, whenever children asked their parents why the darkness stayed away at night, the answer was always the same. Because somewhere out there, humanity was watching and they feared one word above all others: humanity.